So Jeff, go ahead and read the FDA.
All right. Okay, if everybody will follow along with me this evening, these statements and comments have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This information is solely for educational purposes only and includes recent advances in research on micronutrients. Engage, the micronutrient company, does not claim that our products diagnose, treat, cure, heal, or prevent any disease or injury. However, Engage's products are formulated to address nutritional deficiencies and supply the body with the required nutrients. It's important to note that nothing here is meant to be a substitute for professional medical treatment or consultation with your primary healthcare provider. So that having been taken care of, Beth, back to you.
So I have 3 bios to read tonight. So the first one is Dr. Jean-René Corbier. He is a board-certified pediatric neurologist and integrative pediatrician. He is a national speaker, author, and a medical director of a brain restoration clinic with a focus on brain health. He specializes in helping children and adults recover from neurological conditions. Dr. Paul Corbier is a board-certified internist with experience in community health, hospice care, drug counseling, and correctional medicine. He's currently the chief medical officer at the Brain Restoration Clinic, working alongside his twin brother. And Bill Bance, a former real estate investor and IT professional. After realizing my true calling, I became a wellness coach and natural health practitioner, passionate about helping people achieve their health goals. I use my skills to guide others on their wellness journey with certifications in natural wellness, health coaching, and aromatherapy. I'm dedicated to providing personalized support and resources. All right, y'all, we are going to get started with Bill, and he's going to have his presentation.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Just going to share my screen here with you. I think I'm going to share my screen here with you. There we go. All right. Hopefully everybody's seeing that. You seen that okay, Beth? Good, good. Okay. All right. Well, welcome, everybody. We're glad to see everyone here tonight. Thank you for joining us. Tonight's conversation is a little bit about gut health and the gut microbiome, and we're going to talk a little bit about how it relates to the brain and the gut-brain connection. So as Beth said, my name is Bill, or Bill J. I'm part of the Brain Restoration Clinic, and I'm passionate about optimal wellness and the gut microbiome and helping people reach the goals that they're interested in reaching. So we're a brain clinic, the Brain Restoration Clinic. Why are we talking about the gut? Well, because the gut microbiome and its inhabiting flora, they've been found to be connected in virtually every process in our bodies, including immunity. 80% of that is housed in our gut, psychological well-being, and gut-brain and body chemical homeostasis. And all these things are critically important if our bodies are going to work right. The gut-brain axis is one of the most important connections in our body. So are you curious to know more about the gut microbiome? If you are, hang around. If you're not, I guess you can not listen for a little while, but hopefully you are. Morpheus from the Matrix said, if you take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. If you take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more. So we're going to dive into the rabbit hole, the gut microbiome. What is the microbiome? Well, it's a collection of microorganisms that includes bacteria, fungi, viruses, eukaryotes, and other types of organisms. They inhabit our gastrointestinal system, and they make up this mini ecosystem of sorts. In our gut microbiome, there's these combinations of beneficial and pathogenic microorganisms. Sometimes we call them good and bad. They're not always good or bad per se. Some of the bad ones we need, but we just don't need them in overabundance. A lot of the good ones we need, and we don't have enough of them. So in proper balance, these things can complement each other, and they help our bodies work right. The makeup of the microbiome really determines whether the pathogens in the gut complement the other organisms and move us toward wellness, or overpower them and move us toward disease. Why should we really even care about this? Well, the microbiome determines whether something we come into contact with is friendly or not. It maintains balance and order among its own inhabitants. It ensures that opportunistic pathogens are kept to a minimum. It keeps the host system from attacking itself. We all kind of know what that is. That's called autoimmune disease. It breaks down food and beverage to take in the necessary nutrients that we need. And it also secretes hormones and chemicals and neurotransmitters that help regulate our bodies and our brains. So then what's the gut-brain axis? What does that mean, the gut-brain axis? Well, this is the two-way communication link between our primary brain and our gut, which sometimes we also call the second brain. You may have heard that before. This communication actually happens via 4 routes. It happens via the vagus nerve, and that's a big long nerve, runs from the brain all the way down to the gut and transmits communication, two-way communication between the brain and the gut. We all know the central nervous system, the brain and the spinal cord, that also is how the gut-brain axis talks. The enteric nervous system, if you weren't aware, your gut actually has its very own nervous system. It's housed in the lining of the gut. And interestingly, there's actually more neurons in the gut than there is in the entire spinal cord. There's greater than 100 million neurons in your enteric nervous system. And there's also more than 100 times the genomic DNA of humans in gut bacteria. So gut bacteria have their own DNA, and there's more than 100 times what we have in the human genome DNA. So pretty interesting stuff. And you can see how kind of a horked up gut can get your whole body and your brain really out of control fairly quickly. And then cell-to-cell communication in the gut is the 4th route that the gut-brain axis talks. So what are some gut bacteria and the neurotransmitters that they influence? So we look at the gut microbiome as a whole. There's bunches of bacteria and fungi and eukaryotes. We talked about that earlier. But there's been research around specific strains and specific genus and families of bacteria, and that they influence and regulate certain things in our body that also lead to our brain. So some of the research has shown, for example, bacillus bacteria. This is really important in the influence and regulation of dopamine, norepinephrine, and acetylcholine, 3 really important neurotransmitters that help the brain to function. Bifidobacterium, they're influential with something called GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid. You've probably heard about GABA before. Enterococcus and streptococcus bacteria, they're influential with serotonin. I think we all know serotonin, that's the happy hormone. If your serotonin is dysregulated, you're usually not real happy. Staphylococcus and Clostridia bacteria, they regulate serotonin and dopamine. Lactobacillus, they help with acetylcholine and GABA. And then Escherichia, they help with norepinephrine and serotonin. So you can see if these bacteria here are that influential in all these different neurotransmitters, then what could really happen if these things get out of balance? And so we want to talk a little bit about that and why we don't want that to happen. So great, I just gave you this list of bacteria and all these lists of neurotransmitters, but what the heck do these neurotransmitters actually do? Well, let me take you on a quick 30,000-foot flyover. So this is a real quick primer of those particular neurotransmitters and what they manage. So dopamine. Dopamine manages pleasure and reward center, thinking and planning, and focus. Norepinephrine regulates stress, low blood pressure, and focus. GABA helps regulate, GABA is a big one, does a lot of things, anxiety, stress, depression, insomnia, intestinal motility, and inflammation. Serotonin, we talked about that, that's the happy hormone, so that regulates mood, sexual desire and function, appetite, sleep, memory and learning, temperature regulation, and some social behavior. And then acetylcholine, that regulates intestinal motility and secretions, and motor neurons that activate your muscles. So pretty important, these neurotransmitters, and pretty important how the gut bacteria that regulate them come into play. So something that maybe you've heard about before, what happens, one of the things that happens when our gut gets out of balance and pathogens start to overtake things and stuff happens that we don't really want to have happen, you can end up with a condition called leaky gut syndrome. Sometimes it's also called intestinal hyperpermeability. And basically what happens is if your gut gets damaged and out of balance, this on the left side here, these 3 sort of light red microvilli, typically what happens is these things are together, they're fairly close together, right? so that very little passes in between them. Only the stuff that's supposed to pass in between them goes through and gets into your bloodstream, the things that we need to extract and put into our bodies, nutrients, micronutrients, things like that. When the gut gets inflamed, when it gets damaged, when it gets too much bacteria, too much fungus, things that are hurting it, what you get is something that looks like this on the right-hand side. And these little microvilli, these tight junctions get damaged, they open up, and they let all these little nasties through. Things called endotoxins, lipopolysaccharides, bacterial endotoxins, stuff that you don't really want to get into your bloodstream, because oftentimes when we're talking with our patients, I'll often say, when something gets into your bloodstream, where can it go? And the answer is anywhere it wants, because it's in your bloodstream. Oftentimes, in our clinic, because we are a brain restoration clinic, we see that these things attack the brain. Many practitioners, many places will tell you if you have leaky gut, oftentimes you can have leaky brain because toxins get into the blood, they go to the brain, they begin to attack the brain barrier. And when that gets opened up, you can have certain types of neuroimmune and autoimmune conditions that you don't really want. So hopefully at this point, you're pretty convinced of the importance of taking care of your microbiome and your gut. And so what does taking care of your gut and your microbiome really look like? Well, we'll just do a couple of quick things here to talk about that. In order to really build an optimized gut or rebuild a damaged one, there are several key ingredients. One of them, that actually foundational, is feeding it a healthy and whole foods, nutrient-dense, diverse diet. 2,400 some odd years ago, Hippocrates said, "Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food." And he was spot on. If you don't have a good diet, a well-rounded, whole food, nutrient-dense, and diverse diet, it's really tough to get well because your body needs things that it won't get if you're just giving it junk food. And so we know that that's really important. But the problem with today's day and age is that our food and our soil and our seeds are really not what they used to be decades and centuries ago. I think that most of us probably know that seeds have been genetically modified, soil has been modified. We put all kinds of weed killer on the soil, on the seeds. We grow stuff in ways that it wasn't done hundreds of years ago. And so what we have today is not the same nutrient-dense food that we used to have once had centuries ago. And so in order to really support and bolster that, we've got to supplement. That's really, really important because we can't get all that we need from our foods anymore. Unfortunate as it is, that's the way it is. So what does supplementation look like? Well, in our clinic, we highlight a few things. We like for you to supplement with high quality bioavailable supplements. So for example, things like a really complete micronutrient blend that absorbs really well, that's formulated properly to absorb in your body. Things like omega-3 fatty acids, EPA and DHA. These are crucial to how the gut and the brain operates. The brain doesn't operate well without proper fatty acids. We recommend digestive enzymes as needed. Sometimes our gut it's either messy enough, or as we get older, our gut just doesn't digest the same as it used to when we were younger. So sometimes we need to give it a little support with a little digestive enzyme. Antioxidants are pretty crucial. Those help with a lot of things. Some antioxidants are coffee, tea, astaxanthin, resveratrol, CoQ10, curcumin, and there's a number of others, but these antioxidants are really important too. We often look at the gut lining. So when you get leaky gut or you get damaged gut, we can heal and fix and support that using gut lining support supplements. That's something that can support the body to begin to help to heal itself. Our bodies were designed to be self-healing, but we've got to give it the right inputs, eliminate the toxic insults to the extent that we can, and then it will do its thing. So some of the support supplements that can help the body move toward wellness are things like collagen, glutamine, and there's a few others. We have to give the body and the microbiome prebiotic foods and supplements. Prebiotics are really a type of fibers. There are different types of fibers. And the prebiotics are really important because they actually feed the good guys. What we're trying to do is get the good guys to run the show where they keep the bad guys in check. And so the prebiotics are what feed the good gut bacteria, and the good gut bacteria can produce lots of things in there like short chain fatty acids and other stuff that we need to be able to be well. And then also we recommend probiotics as needed too. Sometimes, again, like digestive enzymes, we need to put a little probiotics down in the gut to help crowd out some of the bad guys, help to support some of the good guys, and to really build off a foundation that can move a body and a gut and a brain back to full wellness. So with all that said, the good news is even if your gut is not well and your gut function, the microbiome actually can be restored and optimized over time. The body can do that well with specialized food and supplements and other protocols, and eliminating toxic insults to the extent we can. Things like EMFs and poor sleep and overabundance of stress. Those things have all got to be eliminated. But if you build a really quality team of wellness practitioners, doctors, nurses, nutritionists, health coaches, et cetera, and you build a really good personal wellness plan, it would be one of the most worthwhile investments you, your family, and your friends can possibly make for years and years to come. So with that, I'm going to stop my presentation. I hope that was useful, and I'm going to turn it over to the doctors. They've got a few things to tell you as well.
Sure. Great. Thank you, Bill. That was a great talk, and we'd like to welcome all of our audience for coming. We know that all of you are busy, and but you're all interested in health, including gut health. So we're very happy that you could come for this presentation. I'm going to share my screen first, and let's make sure that. All right, Beth, does it show up okay, Bill? Yep.
It's
see
on
my-
presentation mode.
Presentation mode. All right, let's fix that. Sorry about that. Bear with me. And is that better? Yep. Okay, good. All right, so I'm Dr. Jean-Renel Corbier. I'm a child neurologist, and I've entitled my portion of the talk, The Brain-Gut Symphony. And this implies that there's some type of communication between the brain and the gut. So first of all, from a neurological standpoint, back in the 1990s, I was always perplexed by the fact that some individuals, especially kids with neurological problems, had a lot of gut issues. We knew that the gut issues were important and that somehow they were affecting the brain, but we didn't know exactly how. There were a lot of proposed mechanisms. But over the past several years, there have been a lot of studies showing that there's a microbiome gut-brain connection, a highway, if you will, and there's communication between the three, microbiome, the gut, and the brain. So we're going to explore that. My portion of the talk will be to highlight the neurological aspects of this gut-brain connection. So with that said, I want to first ask you a question. Have you ever had a gut feeling, or have you ever had a sensation that starts in your gut? And the question is, how could that occur? A gut feeling, we know that thoughts originate in the brain. Well, that gut feeling already shows you that there's a connection. What about those of you that suffer from migraine headaches? Have you ever had nausea or vomiting with that? Or those that have seizures? There are seizures that can manifest with gastrointestinal symptoms like vomiting. We call that ictus emeticus. All of these suggest that there is indeed a connection between the brain and the gut. One key thing I want all of you to get from the talk is that there is constant bidirectional communication between the brain and the gut. And this communication is very important in modulating various aspects of our lives, whether behaviorally, cognitively, and emotionally. And so you all have heard that we have a second brain in our gut, and that second brain is extremely important. So let's review a few things. So as you've already heard with Bill, there are several ways that the brain and that the gut communicate with each other. One is the vagal nerve, the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is one of 12 cranial nerves. So if you look at the brain stem, there are 12 sets of nerves that emanate from the brain stem and that innervate parts of the body, including the face, the throat, the larynx. The longest one is the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is very important as it serves as a highway between brain and gut. The vagus nerve is interesting because in our practice, we stimulate the vagal nerve to help with things like seizures. Vagal nerve stimulation can also help regulate the mood, but it can also regulate inflammation and many other functions. So the vagal nerve is very important, but there are also other components. The gut microbiome. The microbiome, as again, you've heard from Bill, our first speaker, the microbiome is very diverse. So a lot of bacteria that are very active in our gut. I used to not be able to understand how important the bacteria were until I started studying the genome. So when I talk about DNA and genes, just for reference, the human body, the human organism has about 20,000 genes. But if you look at the DNA composition in the gut, there are many million, several million genes that make up the gut microbiome. And these genes influence the microbiota, which in turn influence the brain. So the microbiome, view that as a very active, think of it even as an organism that can regulate neurotransmitter and neurological function. So the microbiome is important. The communication highway, we have the vagus nerve, we have the gut microbiome, but we also have a part of the nervous system that we call the autonomic nervous system, or ANS. The autonomic nervous system regulates a lot of things, temperature, gut function, swelling, and that's another means of communication between brain and gut. But there are also hormones and immune signals like cytokines. Those play a very key role in connecting brain and gut. Quick fact, just to reiterate, about 90% of serotonin, the happy hormone, is secreted in the gut. Now, the brain itself also manufactures serotonin, but the gut manufactures by far the bigger load of serotonin, 90% or so. So when we talk of neurochemicals and neurotransmitters, we have to start to think about the gut and its role in modulating and even synthesizing neurotransmitters, which in turn affect us. Now, I have this depiction here of the so-called HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So there's a lot of research and talk about this. The HPA, so-called HPA axis, regulates things like stress, mood, and through this axis, we're linking the brain, in particular, something called the limbic system. The limbic system is made up of a structure inside the brain called the hippocampus, the amygdala, and hypothalamus. The hypothalamus will release corticotropin-releasing factor, which will then impact another structure a little lower down called the pituitary, which will then go all the way down and impact the adrenal cells. This whole mechanism also interacts with the gut. Bill talked to you about the enteric nervous system. The enteric nervous system, the so-called second brain, has, we used to think about 100 million, but it may have even more, 200, 300, 400 million nerve cells. And it has its own microcircuitry regulating things like motility and secretions and a lot of things going on in the gut. But the key is all of these things, all of these systems interact. And so the bottom line here is you have a bidirectional communication with the brain, the central nervous system, or CNS, and the enteric nervous system, or ENS, and it's linking different centers, emotional, cognitive centers. In our practice, for example, we work with a lot of kids that have neuroimmune problems called PANS and PANDAS. Sometimes this part of the brain, the limbic system, where the amygdala is part of that, can get inflamed. So you get a limbic encephalitis, and that can interact with the gut, vice versa, causing a lot of symptoms. And so with this communication, this bidirectional gut-brain, if we understand that there are neuroimmune, neuroendocrine, and even humoral links, then we can start to see how we can modulate these factors to help with brain function. And I'll explain this a little bit better with the next slide. So when we talk of gut-brain, we're looking at mental health. Imagine someone with a neuropsychiatric problem who's placed on a bunch of meds and who's not getting better. that person may have an issue that starts with the gut. And for example, the person may have this increased intestinal permeability or leaky gut. Antigens may then leave the gut lining, enter the blood, cross the blood-brain barrier, and then influence certain brain cells or microglia to becoming inflamed. And then you can get neurological problems, which mean that to treat and to address these issues, we have to include gut function, without which we may or may not get the type of results that we want. So gut imbalances can lead to neurological and neuropsychiatric problems, anxiety, depression, brain fog. How many people have these? Quite a few. But also cognitive functions, memory, learning, all of this may link to gut health as it relates to gut-brain problems. And then neuroinflammation. This is very important. You have cytokines and other cells, humoral cells that are released, and that can, even though they start in the gut, can then affect brain function directly. So if you look at some specific disorders, there are growing research studies that show that even neurodegenerative problems and conditions like Alzheimer's disease with dementia, there can be a very strong link with gut function. Same with Parkinson's disease and even mood disorders like depression. And of course, neurodevelopmental problems such as autism. Back in the 90s, I was fascinated by studies that were starting to show that the microbiome and certain organisms like Clostridia could directly affect not only behavior in kids with autism, but also affect speech. So by correcting gut functions, then you can see speech occur and emerge. So very, very, very exciting. So we know, for example, with autism, which is a condition that we work a lot with in our clinic, 70% or more of kids on the spectrum have gut-related issues. It follows that a lot of the neurobehavioral cognitive problems based on studies are linked to the gut problems, because by taking care of gut malfunction, we oftentimes see brain and neurological factors improve. So think of this gut-brain connection having true life implications when it comes to the treatment of neurological disorders. Even in utero, we used to think, for example, that the placenta, the prenatal space, all of that was sterile. Now we know that the microbiome plays a role. So with the birth of a baby, the vaginal canal will play a big role in the colonization and the formation of the microbiome in babies. And so it's very important how we understand this so we can make sure that microbiome is very healthy and diverse. And so with that said, again, if I talk to you as a neurologist, I always want to make sure, first of all, that the brain and the body are working very well. And we know that lifestyle, nutrition, all of this is fundamental, exercise, all of these things. But if you look at the gut-brain axis, we want to make sure that we have good nutrients. Bill also mentioned that we want a very good, complete set of micronutrients. In our practice, we now focus on what's called micro daily EMF, and we've seen very good results with that. And we've learned to couple the micro daily EMF with other supplements that work synergistically together. Omegas are important for brain function. In our practice, we use a lot of CBD oil because a lot of our kids and adults have neuroactivation, so they need something to calm their brain. Adults, we're finding it past a certain age, also need collagen, less so with kids. But if you look at the gut-brain axis, you also need a good probiotic and a good digestive enzyme to complete the picture, given the important role of the gut-brain axis. So nutrition is important, appropriate supplementation in synergy, and then lifestyle. So with that said, the main key point, the main message I want you to get from this talk is that when we talk of gut health, we're also talking about brain health, and we know how important the brain is. We want to make sure that we take care of the gut. By taking care of the gut, we take care of the brain, and that may entail appropriate dietary as well as dietary supplementation, nutraceuticals. I want all of us here to pay attention and to continue learning about the powerful link that exists between the gut and the brain, because that communication is powerful and is key to our health. And so the question is, starting today, what are we going to do to strengthen that brain-gut connection, that symphony between gut and brain? So to further look into this, and for a little bit more specifics, I'm going to turn it over to my brother, and he'll continue this conversation. All right, so for this last segment, I'd like to talk specifically about probiotics and a very specific brand, which is the Probiotic Daily. Several of you may have heard of this. I'm going to sort of talk about this more specifically, because the question becomes, what can I do? I hope we've convinced you thus far that gut health is important. And I know all of you care about brain health as well. And the two are talking to each other. So what can I do? What can you do? Well, let's take a closer look at probiotics, namely Probiotic Daily by Engage Global, and see some of the characteristics and how that actually might help our health. So just to remind you, and Bill quoted Hippocrates, and part of his corpus, another thing he said, interestingly, was all diseases start in the gut. Today, we know, based on modern medicine, that a lot of disease process have a lot to do with our gut health and that gut community of bacteria and microorganisms called the microbiome. So we know that if you take care of your gut, it'll take care of you. Now, by the way, what does probiotic mean? On my photo, probiotic. Pro means for, bios means life. I like that already, for life. Anything that promotes and strengthens aspects of our lives, that's great. Except that we're not just talking about our lives as human beings, but we're specifically talking about that community of live microorganisms, the friendly bacteria in our gut. They need to be taken care of as well. That's our message. Now, if you look at the International Scientific Association for Probiotics and Prebiotics, called ASAP, this is a nonprofit group of some of the best scientists devoted to looking at probiotics, prebiotics. They have meetings every year. This is an international non-biased organization. They'll tell you what they think is the highest quality of probiotics. And if you read their material, and of course in PubMed, there's only 27,000 articles every year about the subject, you're going to get a sense of how important this is. With age, here's what happens. With age, the harmful bacteria tend to proliferate a little bit more as the good and beneficial bacteria tend to decrease. And that's why we need to put in probiotics. And again, by definition, according to the ASAP, these are live organisms. See, before we used to think that organisms and germs were all bad. That's not true. Some of them are very friendly to the gut, to the colon, but they have to be proven to have some health benefits. So by definition, if you have a good probiotic, they have to be shown to have some health benefits. That's the power of probiotics. Now, in this one that we're going to talk about, Probiotic Daily, I'll just say 2 or 3 words. First of all, I was very impressed that they have some of the best species that have been studied. Now, there may be about 25, 30 genera of lactobacillus, but 7 of the best studied ones are in this Probiotic Daily. So I'm using this as a strong example of a very good probiotic. I take it myself. Bifidobacterium is another type of species of bacteria. 5 of them are in this product. I like that already. And then 2 others that we'll talk about, Bacillus and Saccharomyces. We'll talk about that. That's a yeast-based probiotic, all in there. And then prebiotics, 6 of them, 6 types of, nearly 6 types of fiber. When we talk of prebiotics, we're talking about specialized fiber, soluble fiber that feed the good bacteria, which in turn helps our gut. So all that's in the Probiotic Daily. I'm going to say a few more things. Actually, I'm just going to say 4 more things next that you will not forget about the power of this Probiotic Daily. First of all, this probiotic is very strong. What do I mean by a stalwart strength? Well, in it, there are a couple strains or species in there that allow the probiotic to even make it to its destination, to its home in the colon. So when you're swallowing a probiotic like the Probiotic Daily, you want to make sure that it reaches all the way to the colon. But even before you pop a pill like that, it might be denatured and destroyed by heat. But fortunately, when I say that this probiotic is stalwart, strength, and resilient, it's heat resistant. So in the processing and transportation, manufacturing, it's not going to be destroyed. Don't even have to refrigerate it. It's going to be solid because of two species in there, the Saccharomyces and also the Bacillus. The Bacillus coagulans is a spore-based, has tough outer shell that resists the heat, but also the stomach acid. Remember, our stomach produces acid to digest the food, but then it might also break down the live bacteria that's in transit to reach the colon. But the Microbiotic Daily, we know for sure, is very resistant to the stomach acid, to heat, so it's heat resistant, resistant to acid, and even bile acid. So as it continues, the probiotic that you swallow, and it goes past the stomach into the small intestine, in the duodenum, the first segment of the intestine, bile is secreted to help, break down fat, but it breaks down the microorganisms as well in the probiotic. But this one is also resistant to bile acids as well in its trek all the way to the colon, where it will proliferate and take care of decent business as far as our health and well-being. So that's what I like about it. One, it's a pretty sturdy, a resilient set of probiotics all wrapped up in one. Then there's this other term I'd like to acquaint you with, synbiotic, S-Y-N, synbiotic power. What I mean by that is not only does this probiotic daily that we're recommending have the right probiotic strains, but it's coupled with the prebiotics. So it's two sets of things. Again, the probiotics, friendly bacteria, coupled with fiber, healthy, carefully chosen fibers, the likes of inulin, guar gum. Some of these we've been using in our practice, beta, glucan, oat bran, different types of fiber to feed the good bacteria and have all kinds of health properties. So it's really two things wrapped up in one. And of course, it can help us with bowel trouble and constipation and all that. So synbiotic, meaning probiotic with the prebiotic, all wrapped up in one. Plus, the third powerful aspect of Probiotic Daily, this type of probiotic that we're using as an example and that we're using, is it also has symbiotic power. So we're playing with words now. So the syn is with probiotic, with prebiotic. Symbiotic means that symbiotic relationship. So as we take the right probiotic, like the Probiotic Daily, it's going to allow some of the other supplements that we do recommend, like a good solid multivitamin and micronutrients, like the Micro Daily EMF. In fact, a lot of times we'll talk about the Core 4. So the right probiotic that's going to help other supplements like the Micro Daily EMF, that's a set of micronutrients and curcumin and other things to actually get absorbed in the system. It works with quercetin and other things like that. Their bioavailability. Omega, we keep mentioning that too. If you really want to get the job done, you need a good source of omega. We recommend the Omega Daily. And as you age, collagen peptide, a specific type of collagen. So you do that, the probiotic allows these other things to work, and also good nutrition. Let's not forget, if the probiotic is really helping our colon and our gut health, it's going to have this kind of relationship, making us in general be able to properly absorb and process nutrition, good nutrition. And then I'm going to introduce you to a fourth term, and we get a little excited about this, but how about the term psychobiotic? Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of that term, but the probiotics, as we've been saying, Bill mentioned it, my brother mentioned it, but we're finding out that neurotransmitters, that is brain chemicals, are influenced or modulated by the right probiotics. For instance, lactobacillus, rhamnosus, or bacillus that we talked about, some of these, or bifidobacterium, longa, both of which are in this probiotic, can actually influence the neurotransmitters and therefore begin to help us with things like anxiety. So that's why if you take care of the gut through taking the right probiotic, it can really nurture your mood and your mind. So the final thing I'd like us to talk about to give us a chance to ask questions is, here's one type of supplement that we sometimes neglect, but we are talking after all about our gut health. So you don't want to forget about the role of digestive enzymes. Now, if you're like me, I didn't think that digestive enzymes were all that important years ago, but the more I look at it, the more I think that it's really something for us to look at when indicated. Now, the good news is all of us already have in our internal pharmacy. Did you all know that we have an internal pharmacy? We were designed, made, created with an internal pharmacy with all that we actually need, including the digestive enzymes. Our saliva, salivary glands make the digestive enzymes, so does our pancreas. It's already there. But the bad news is as we age, we reduce the digestive potential, and we're not even breaking down the food and the nutrients. No wonder we feel bad. So what are the symptoms that can result from a lack of digestion and digestive enzyme in our system? Well, the obvious things may include bloating, gas, constipation. If you have that, that's already bad news from a health point of view, plus stomach aches. But beyond that, there's a whole slew of symptoms, longer than my arm, of things that go wrong if you're not getting energy from your food. So lack of energy. How many of us are kind of tired, weak, tired, sick and tired of being sick and tired, dry skin, hair loss, mood changes? So in those cases, maybe we need to consider a good digestive enzymes like Digestive Boost. The same company, Engage Global, makes it, and we're very pleased with it. We've studied it, and we think that it is a broad spectrum digestive enzyme system. In other words, it breaks down protein, so it has proteases, namely pepsin, made by the stomach, chief cells of the stomach, to help us digest proteins. It has amylases. This helps break down the starch and carbohydrates to get down to simple sugars that you can absorb and get more energy. Lipases break down a fat. I like the sound of that. I like my fat to be broken down as I eat into glycerides and fatty acids, and even lactose. A lot of us have lactose intolerance, but this can help digest lactose from milk products into more simpler forms of sugar like lactose and glucose. So in summary, what we were trying to say is we want to make sure that you have in your arsenal tools to help your gut. And these include the right supplements. And we mentioned the probiotic, daily digestive enzyme as needed, but also proper nutrition. It makes no sense to take a high quality digestive enzyme like the Digestive Boost if your nutrition is bad, right? So we want good nutrition. You're going to exercise, sleep well. If you do these things in time, you're going to see that your health will increase. So thank you for your attention, and I'll turn it back over to Beth.
Wow, what a call. Lots of information, y'all. So I have a couple questions for you. Can gut dysfunction affect other parts of the body besides the brain?
Who wants to tackle that? Bill, do you want to start with that answer? And each of us could maybe go around and do that.
Sure, I'll throw something out. So the answer is yes. The answer is absolutely yes. So there's a whole host of things that can sort of get messed up with a messy gut, and the brain is only one of them. I mean, just as a quick example, I know folks who've experienced things like muscle cramping. If that's a simple thing, you might think it's a simple thing, but gut dysfunction, say, for example, not extracting proper nutrients and electrolytes and things like that into your system, can cause muscle cramping. If your gut's not working well, you're not getting nutrients, you can get that kind of thing. Other things can be affected. Your eyes can be affected. I won't keep going. I'll let the docs throw some stuff in.
Yeah, thank you. So yes, so any part of the body virtually could be affected. And from a mechanism standpoint, the microbiome, because of its production of certain metabolites and neurotransmitters, can, for example, affect the leakiness of the gut, so-called leaky gut syndrome or increased intestinal permeability. And that can increase the antigenic load, meaning that you get a lot of antigens and byproducts that can then travel to different parts of the body. You get inflammation that can affect the brain, that can affect kidneys, liver, just almost anywhere in the body. And so maintaining the core, in this case, the gut, can then prevent other organ abnormalities. So another example is, have any of you ever felt uneasy or have this general malaise? Now, you might go to the doctor, no guarantee that they'll find anything wrong. But if your gut isn't in shape and that you have leakage of these, and Bill talked about this, what we call endotoxins, these are parts of bad bacteria, parts that are leaking out and getting absorbed in the bloodstream, that's not going to help your cause at all. You're going to feel bad regardless of what blood tests show. That's the beginning of feeling bad. So it could be that general malaise. So it could be pain. So whether it's muscles, joints, aches, it doesn't have to be rheumatoid arthritis. It could just be that your gut being imbalanced could create problems. We talked about hair problems, skin issues. Imagine even the fat-soluble vitamins. If you're not even getting the vitamins and nutrients, believe me, that can impact your bones, your skin. So we're virtually saying that just about anything that has to pass through the gut, if your gut is messed up, the rest of the body may feel it in ways that sometimes you may not even be able to describe. You'll just know that you don't feel right. So that's why we're stressing the gut health.
So one other question about the nervous system. How could this, a lot of people have, like you said, anxiety in that, but what about nerve pain like restless leg syndrome? That affects a lot of the people today. I know I get a lot of calls about that. How would taking care of the gut help with that?
Yes, so a very good question. When we talked about the communication highway between the brain and the gut, we said that there are various ways that that connection occurs, that highway, that communication. One of them is neuroimmune. So in other words, when you have gut dysfunction, that gut dysfunction can cause inflammation. If that inflammation affects the nerve, then you can get nerve pain or peripheral neuropathies of different source. So depending on where the nervous system is affected, or the muscles, for example, you can get what we call myalgia, muscle pain. So we may be dealing with neuroinflammatory or inflammatory conditions causing secondary pain and also dysfunction. So helping or trying to fix the gut can then cause secondary improvement in these other symptoms. And I might just add that if someone's having a lot of nerve pain or restless leg syndrome and things like that, in addition to fixing the diet and the gut, CBD oil can also help. We're finding a lot of good results with that.
Okay. What would you say to everybody on the call? There's some questions in there about collagen and where to get it and this kind of stuff. I did text in the chat for everybody to reach back out to the person that invited them to the call. But one of the questions is about collagen and how would you know which collagen, because y'all mentioned the collagen a little bit. So could you just hit on the collagen, how it goes with the probiotic, how it goes with the micronutrients a little bit so we can answer the questions in the chat? Where did they go? I think they got knocked off.
Uh-oh.
Well, Bill, you want to answer that a little bit?
Yeah, sorry, I was looking here to see if I could figure out what was going on with them. I'm sorry, tell me the question again.
The question in the chat was what collagen and how does the collagen go with using the probiotic?
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, so collagen is really, really important in so many things. Our gut lining, our connective tissues, all those types of things that tend to break down as we age or as we get sick. But we also know that there are specific types of collagen that are more beneficial, more useful than others, right? So first of all, we highly recommend the microdaily collagen for a few reasons. Number one, not just the collagen, but really all the products behind it. We've studied a lot of the research done by Dr. Prasad and the team there at Engage Global. And we found that just the substantial amount of detail that's gone into figuring out the formulation of all these products is really pretty crucial. And collagen in particular, so when you look at collagen, there's a few different types, but collagen peptides are what's really, really important. They break down easily, they're absorbed properly, they distribute where they're supposed to. And so the Micro Daily has that formulation in it. And that's why we've begun recommending that. I for years, I've been a biohacker for a long time, right? Hacking my own body, my own wellness. And I for years used a different type of collagen. It was good, but then Micro Daily collagen came along and it's better. That's all I can say about that. And so that's what we generally recommend, the type of peptide, type of collagen that's in the Micro Daily supplements.
So I don't know what happened to them.
I don't either.
All right, so,
Here they go.
oh, here they come. Hey, guys.
Cut off. We got cut off. Beth, you didn't like what I was saying? You cut me off. Just kidding.
So, Bill answered question about the collagen. If y'all want to add to the collagen, and then y'all can close out the call.
Go ahead. Yeah. So for collagen, I just wanted to add, so we're grateful to Dr. Kedar Prasad for formulating the right type of collagen and other products. As a neurologist, I'm interested also in the brain-related aspects of collagen. Collagen is very abundant throughout the body, one of the most abundant proteins, and therefore with age, diminishment of collagen can also affect the brain. Certain neurodegenerative problems like Alzheimer's have been implicated with collagen. And so replenishing collagen can then help not just with skin and nails and things like that, but also with brain-related cognitive function. So that's very, very exciting. We are seeing, even in kids, certain collagen-based disorders where a particular mutation affects collagen. Now that's rare, but that it can occur. But certainly with age, as people get older and have less and less collagen, that should also be included in the regimen, dietary regimen, to support overall bodily functions. And the last thing I'll say is, unfortunately, we live in a toxic food environment, as I would call it. So the food we eat almost becomes toxic if we're not careful. So that's when the air we breathe, the electromagnetic radiation that we're exposed to. So no wonder we're sick. And so what we're saying is you got to be aggressive with your health. You have to look at a very comprehensive picture, which includes lifestyle. So we hope that the take-home message is, before considering these high-quality supplements, and we only want the best, and so that's why we've looked and vetted these. So we like these very much, but they work even better if you make the commitment to be healthy and well. So if you do, then these products will work very well for you.
So I want to say thank y'all for leading this call tonight. I'm sure that everybody that was on here was blessed with your information. And also too, we have recorded the call. So the call will be on the YouTube channel on TeamServe. So we will post it probably tonight if I'm really good at it. So thank you. And also too, we will be doing another call in November with the doctors. Not sure what the topic will be, but we look forward to our next call with them. And thank y'all for being the doctors and, you know, just really trying to help people. The sincerity, I know I've known y'all for some years now with Denise, and we just really thank you for your knowledge, all the studying you've done, and the efforts and all the time you've put into with Dr. Prasad, and he will be on the call with y'all next in November. So y'all did an awesome job. We really appreciate the breakdown. And for you, Bill, too, we appreciate your PowerPoint and your information that you brought to us tonight, too. So I want to thank everybody and have a great night.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Good evening.
Let's go! Super fantastic.
everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome sauce.
Absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you for calling.
Bye-bye, everyone.